grind, grace under pressure, run in almost any circumstance. I like that planetary yours, I like the way she was there, broken shirts and yoga pants.
You are listening to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda, hosted by two teachers who break down a different propaganda song each episode. Today we're talking about Things I Like, track number 8 from the 6th full-length album, Failed States.
And we also, I guess, should say that Failed States was released on September 12th, 2012. So we are approaching the 8th anniversary of this album, right? So yeah, this was their first record for Epitaph after Supporting Cast came out on Small Man Records. And this record is their second and last record with the Beeve, David Gies, who left to become, like you and me, a teacher. So the Beeve is now our colleague north of the border in Winnipeg, teaching high school or something. I'm not exactly sure.
I think it's elementary school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was on Twitter for a while. And
lovely.
all the videos he posted or pictures he posted, it was with wee ones. So I think it's elementary school.
That is absolutely spectacular.
Pretty awesome.
So Keith, we're talking about Things I Like. Why did you pick this song?
There's just so much going on in the world, and between the still sheltering at home, even if my state tells me I don't have to, watching videos of protests and awful rhetoric coming out of positions of power right now, I just thought it would be hard to break down for our passion project something really heavy this week. So I thought this would be a good meditation on almost like a strategy to reflect on the things that we enjoy and the things that we value, and maybe not have to deal with anything too heavy right now.
Well, and I was reflecting on our Bringer of Greater Things episode recently, and I was listening back to it, and there was a moment when in that conversation where I was just like about to lose my mind. Like I was like having a hard time sitting here being in control of like my body. Like I was like out of breath. I was like heaving. I felt like I was about to just start like sobbing essentially. And when you said that we were going to talk about Things I Like, I had a breather of relief essentially, because the Bringer of Greater Things episode was just so heavy, and I went down so many rabbit holes when we were preparing for that one, that this was just such a welcome change as well. Not that this song doesn't have serious elements,
For sure. Yeah. And I see it as a breather on the album, which I'll talk about a little bit later as well. But no, I agree. It was kind of nice to have a little bit of a pause.
Yeah. So, when I was like thinking about this song, I revisited that Vice article with Chris Hanna where he ranked his records that we've chatted about a couple of times. And when Failed States came out, Chris rated this one as his favorite. And I also should say again, for anybody who didn't hear our last chat about this, that this is before Victory Lap came out, so the order might be different now. But Chris ranked Failed States as his number one because he said if your newest stuff isn't your favorite, then that's problematic to him. So I think this is something that a lot of artists would agree with, whether or not their favorite is the one that resonates the most with the fan base, who also matters. But why didn't you say at one time this one is your favorite as well? This is like your Twitter banner too and everything.
Yeah. I would actually say this is probably my just favorite album, like of all time.
Oh, in general.
Yeah, not just favorite propaganda album, but that wasn't really the case when I first heard it. It came out right before I quit a teaching job that wasn't working out. It wasn't a good fit for me. I was super stressed. I kind of given up in that position, and the album is just so heavy and dark and dense. So it being like a combination of the music and the lyrics and just a really rough spot in my life, I had to kind of shelve it and come back to it. And I was listening to like a lot of folk and really mellow stuff at the time because I was just so stressed out. I had to move because I quit my job, and it took a while for me to really appreciate it. Like since it is I think pretty different from Supporting Cast, which just felt like an album that clicked a lot more easily.
Mhm.
And I've talked with a lot of older fans of the band who kind of said they didn't like the album when it first came out, when they first heard it, or even like at all. How was your experience when you first heard Failed States?
So Supporting Cast, as I've mentioned a couple times, is like just so much perfection for me that when this one came out, I was disappointed, but I also didn't dislike it at all. I liked it more than Potemkin City Limits right away.
Okay.
And I remember liking it a lot more on the first listen than my first listen of Potemkin City Limits. However, I liked Supporting Cast so much on
Okay.
first listen that I
Yeah.
don't know if a Propaganda record will ever hit me. So, like, I mean, maybe they'll make one more record ever. Maybe they'll make two. Who knows? There's no telling. But I don't think that a record of theirs will ever hit me the exact
Mm.
in the exact perfect way like Supporting Cast did. So I liked Failed States pretty much, but it didn't click with me listening through it on the record in a way that was, super profound until I saw them play it live.
Oh,
And
okay.
I saw them play a show at a place called the Firebird in St. Louis, and the show was so good. And they came out and played Note to Self as the opener, and I was like, that's bold, 6-minute slow song right off the bat. So I saw them play that show, and I think they played 8 or 9 songs off of Failed States during the show, out of a set of like 24, 25 songs. So that's a pretty bold statement. And I remember walking away and then just listening to Failed States nonstop for the next several weeks. So
Yeah, it took me at least a year to really like love it and not think I like also kind of let down since I had listened to Supporting Cast just constantly. I had listened to it so much it would be like unfair for any album, whatever album they put out after that. It was just really hard to kind of compete against.
Yeah. So for me, it was a good record off the bat. I remember it sounding different, recording wise. I know that they recorded some stuff at the Blasting Room before this, and then this one they recorded like fully in Winnipeg at a place called Illegal Combatant Studios. Is that? I don't know like exactly where that is. I haven't like looked a lot at the production notes of this album, but I know they recorded it all in Winnipeg as opposed to like going to Colorado for the Blasting Room or something like that. So I just remember it sounding a lot different, and that may have had something to do with like them re-releasing a remastered version in 2019. So I have both LPs. I have the 2012 LP and the 2019. And funny story, while we're chatting about those LPs, they are identical in the packaging.
Right.
They are identical in the barcode. There is not a change of date on the release date on the record sleeve. So the 2019 vinyl is identical to the 2012 vinyl, and I have to put on the records in order to figure out which one it is. And I actually sent a Facebook message to the Propaganda band account. I was like, I can't tell which one's which. I have them both in my hands,
Yeah.
and I'm looking at them, and it's the same information on the back of the LP. And so Todd responded. He goes, I have to look into this. So he like sent all these messages over to Epitaph, and he's like, what's the deal with this? They're identical. And so it was this really hilarious moment where Todd couldn't tell me which one was the 2019 version because I was holding them in my hands. And I keep my LPs in really good shape. So my 2012 LP is like still in perfect condition. The package, so like the ends aren't all dinged up and everything. So
Yeah.
I could not tell which one was which.
You need a red dot on the sleeve. Just as a reminder.
And like you can tell if you know which etching is on the actual LP itself. So like right next to the label on the actual record,
Yeah.
those little carvings. that's the way to tell. But unless you like hold it up to the light and like which etching you're looking for, the LP sleeves and the records themselves look identical. We are going to talk about the song Things I Like. So Keith, why don't we go ahead and start off with the music of this tune? Tell me what you really like about the music or what you dislike. I'm not here to make any presumptions over what you like or dislike, so you can feel free to tell me if I have inaccurately stated your views. But what do you like about Things I Like?
Yeah, there's that opening fluttery hammer-on pull-off guitar riff, and I think right out the gate, this is going to be like kind of a fun song, and there aren't many newer Propaganda songs that are fun per se. So I think stylistically, lyrically, this song stands out on this album for sure. And as I mentioned, it kind of needs it. I mean, this is a heavy, dense, overwhelming record that addresses transphobia, government violence, violence against sex workers, re-education camps, and it's a lot to take in. So the fact that like there's this track to kind of take a pause and focus on things that are positive, the music definitely fits that. I think if this track were, if that fluttery open riff were like lower on the neck of the guitar, and then the following riffs were faster, to me, this almost feels like a thrash song. So again, kind of maybe paying homage to the music that the band really loves. And the drums seem kind of straightforward. But if you follow the cymbals, they really closely like follow the guitar and the vocals. So you might just kind of tap along to the snare as it kind of consistently, kind of like a punk track, just kind of plows through much of the song. I really recommend like following Jord's right hand. And I think it adds a lot more character if you kind of like tune in your ear to the cymbals there. The bass makes a song feel kind of heavier than it really is, especially since the mood of the song is pretty light. I don't own the remastered version, so listening to like the CD and the LP of the original release, that's what I have. So I was like kind of listening to that. But then I pulled up just a digital version of the remastered, and it's definitely like brighter and clearer. And I'm not a musician and I don't have any experience like recording music. And I listen to a lot of really, underproduced metal. I mean, I'm wearing an Insect Warfare shirt. So, grindcore is not really known for its nuance and its penchant for production. But for me, like listening, constantly to the original release and then hearing the remastered version is kind of like seeing something that looks pretty good on a TV and then seeing that like side by side in a much better high quality TV.
Mm-hmm.
And then realizing only after like you can see them side by side, the difference there. So this track does highlight the benefit and the success of the remaster, even if I don't really have the words to kind of convey what makes it sound better than it just being like bright and a little bit clearer.
And another thing, I really love the bass sound on Failed States. I just really like it. I can hear the bass all the way through, and I really have a sense of Todd's approach. And he's almost got like this gentle feel to his bass where, I can just like, I can feel it and I can hear it. And I really like the sound of the bass on this record as well. I think that they just really nailed it. And I think Todd did a great job on this record in general. So Keith, do you have anything else you'd like to say about the music in general? Okay, cool. Let's talk about the lyrics. And I want to start our lyrics discussion here really quick because the other day we were chatting about this episode and I had the idea of doing a thought exercise where we write the lyrics of this tune using the structure that Chris used, and then we replace the things that he puts in for our things, okay? So, for example, he says, I like Kurt Russell's Captain Ron. And then what I did is I went through every single line and I took out the thing that Chris did and I replaced it with a description of what it was. Okay.
Propaganda
So
Mad Lib.
exactly. So let's see. Oh yeah. So I like, and then in brackets, actor and role, and then bracket album on in almost any circumstance. I like place. I like when insert something someone else does. I like setting. I like animal. I like social justice event. I like author. I like subject, et cetera, et cetera. So I just went through and I took out all the things that Chris said and we put in our own. So would you like to go first or would you like for me to go first?
You got it. I'm going to nominate you. Nose goes. As a middle school teacher, I'm going to say nose goes.
Brutal. I lose. Okay, so here we go. So here is Things I Like by Greg. I like Uma Thurman as Mia Wallace. Empire Strikes First on in almost any circumstance. I like Cycling the Open Road. I like when she wears those running skirts and makes me laugh. I like Great Lake Vistas. I like Little White Dogs. And I also like Rowdy Pride Parades. I like Margaret Atwood's Oryx and Crake. I like The Religions. I like Arguments About God. I like State Lottery and the emergence of thought-provoking ideologies. I like the Tour de France. It reminds me of me, meditative with pain, celebrations, and heartbreaks. I like magical realism, odd narratives with a sideways scene of everyday, boring beings.
I'm snapping along.
Thanks, buddy. Okay, so that is my version of Things I Like by Greg. So, Keith, go ahead and take it away. Unless you had any follow-up questions about my details.
I don't think so.
Awesome. Go for it.
I like Angela Bassett in Strange Days. Surgical steel on in almost any circumstance. I like my classroom when it's full. I like when she does her half-run walk to another room. I like the untouched Indiana Dunes. I like red-throated loons. I like Socratic seminars. I like Annette Gordon Reed. I like social studies. I like arguments about historiography. I like naked trees and the emergence of craft breweries. I like Doug Funny. He reminds me of me. Daydreamer, assimilating, crippled by self-esteem. I like high fantasy. I like movies that hold a mirror to our inhumanity.
Very good. I really liked it. What is Surgical Steel? I don't know that record.
Oh, it's a Carcass album. It's
Oh,
Carcass's most recent full length. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. And I appreciate your inclusion of Doug from Nickelodeon.
Oh, yeah.
That was like my Skeeter, that was one of my favorite things to come home from school and watch when I was a kid.
Yeah, I had this theory that the guy who created Doug was secretly like spying on me, and then like writing this cartoon based off my life because I felt like everything that was in the show just kind of represented what I was going through in 4th and 5th grade.
So there's an interesting line in this song where Chris says, I like when she wears them low-cut shirts and yoga pants.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I did my line for my version just now, I wrote, I like when she wears those running skirts and makes me laugh. But I also had other versions that are not sexual in nature in any way. So I also wrote, I like when I ride my bike and drivers are courteous. And I also wrote, I like when we buy new books and check our facts. So
Nice.
I had several different lines. And the reason that I went with I like the running skirts is because I felt it fit the tone of the song itself and the original version. Tell me about your line.
Oh, my wife does this thing. We were actually just talking about it today.
So funny.
When she gets up and if she's like thinking about something, she'll get up and just kind of do this like half run. And it's very kind of floppy in movement. And you could tell she's focused on, some thought. Usually it's something kind of like making her laugh. And so she's kind of smiling. And when she notices that I see her doing it, she kind of, like freezes up a little bit. But it's just this weird quirk that she has that, I think I'm probably maybe the only person who really gets to see it.
That's very sweet. And the first time I ever heard that line, I like when she wears them low-cut shirts and yoga pants, it really surprised me coming from this band. For years and years, I don't really remember them addressing, their own sexual desires, their own, sexuality, except for the song "Refusing to Be a Man," the closing track of "Less Talk, More Rock." But this song, I always had mixed feelings about. How did you feel when you heard that line for the first time?
Yeah, I agree. I was kind of somewhat surprised in that it was so honest, and open about, obviously his feelings for a significant other. And I think it kind of just more surprised me than anything that they would put something so personal into a track like this.
Yeah, well, and I remember when we talked to Sue Lin, she also mentioned that she likes that line,
Yeah.
which kind of like reframed the way that I think about that line because, I it's just a line that surprises me and stands out in their catalog in general. And I was, kind of chuffed and pleased to hear Sue Lin say that she really enjoyed that line because of how sweet it was to her. And I was just like, oh, well, okay, that's wonderful. That's really cool. And this song has like this wave where it has a lot of really happy things, and it also doesn't let you off the hook.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, so like at the very end, like you think you have a list of things that make someone feel complete or makes them feel like, like a part of their identity and a part of their just, enjoyment. But at the end, I like speculative fiction, dark narratives of the future that looms, of our impending doom.
Mm.
So you think that it's going to be just a song that's like, here's a whole bunch of stuff that I love, but also the stuff that I love is a reflection of maybe that we're kind of not going to make it
Mm.
as a quote unquote civilization. And that dark turn at the end, I think, is just signature propaganda. And it fits this album perfectly because it's such a heavy album.
Well, and then even though it ends so stark and dark, we have Jord screaming in the background after the song ends. Why is my left hand not working? So it has this like impending doom as a last line, and then we have Jord screwing up on the drums, and them putting him like making a joke in at the very end of the song. It's just so like jolting and jarring, where it's like impending doom. What? My left hand.
Yeah.
And
I
that
think
just really
again,
cracked
it's
me up.
like you kind of need it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad they did that. So before we were talking today, I went through and I was just looking at all of the cultural references
Yeah.
that Chris throws into the lyrics, and I really appreciated this. And it reminded me of like old school days where I would get a CD and I would like go through and I would like read all the thank you lists in the back of
Mhm.
the album or whatever, and then I would go like find all those bands that other bands thanked in their albums, and that's how I would discover new bands almost exclusively for years. So this song, I was reading the lyrics and I was like looking at all the things he likes, and I was like, some of these things I don't know. I knew that Grace Under Pressure was a Rush record, but I was like, oh, it's not 2112 and it's not Moving Pictures.
Yeah.
It's not Fly By Night. So I was like, which Rush record is this? And so I went and I found Grace Under Pressure today and I listened to it, and it's a 1984 Rush record named after a quote from that Ernest Hemingway said.
Hmm.
And I think the quote was, "Courage comes from grace under pressure." So Neil Peart read that, named the record after it. But this is also one of those like mega synthesizer era Rush records
Yeah.
where like there's just tons of synthesizer all over it. So I'm listening to this album and I was just thinking about like how Chris said that he wants this album on in almost any circumstance. And if you think about like the Rush catalog, that's not one of the ones that people say.
It's not the typical dad rock Rush album.
Exactly. So that was an interesting cultural touch stone for me because I listened to it tonight while I was cooking some Korean bibimbap. So that was a
Nice.
really nice little kitchen soundtrack, all the synthesizers, because I have been getting into synthwave music lately, like bands like The Midnight and Gunship and stuff like that. So this was like the predecessors of some like 2020 synthwave stuff that I've been listening to almost in a way. And I was like, okay, I can see where this is. I can feel this. I'm feeling this. So today I will admit for the first time that I appreciated my first Rush synth heavy album.
It is a good album.
So thank you to Chris for writing about this. And I never put it on until today. So that's cool. Do you know Grace Under Pressure?
Yeah, I have it.
Oh,
I think
sweet.
it's actually one of 2 Rush LPs that I own, and obviously I own it because of this. I'm like, I saw it used somewhere. I'm like, I'll spend $8 on that.
The next thing is I thought about Captain Ron and how I had an absolute obsession with Captain Ron. I probably watched it 50 times when I was like 12.
Yeah, I was a huge fan too.
And I also realized, so the movie came out in 92. So I was probably watching it like nonstop when it came out on video in like 94. And Martin Short, Kurt Russell, and I probably haven't seen it since like 1995.
Ah,
How about you?
I've within the last year easily.
Oh man, I need to go back and find it.
The scene with the belt sander when Martin Short plugs it in and it knocks him off the boat, and the scream he emits is like top 5 funniest things in a movie ever for me. It kills me every time.
Awesome. Okay, well, I am gonna commit to watching Captain Ron very soon then, because I've seen it so many times, and I bet it's been,
Yeah.
man, I think I probably last watched it when my little brother, who's like 24 or 25 now, was a baby. I'm embarrassed. Anyway, are you a Supremes fan?
Not really. I mean,
So-
I know the song, but I wouldn't be able to, if you played it, I wouldn't have been like, oh, that's the Supremes.
Yeah,
I would have thought, hey, that's a popular song I hear on the oldie station or in a movie.
So Chris name drops "You Can't Hurry Love" by the Supremes from their 1966 album Supremes A Go Go. I also went and listened to this today while I was cooking dinner, and it was just delightful. Really, really nice. So that was another thing. So if you haven't heard that in a while, you should. He ends the song by so then in the middle of the song he also talks about Chris Hedges.
Mhm.
Have you ever read any Chris Hedges books?
Yeah, I've read Wars of the Force, That Gives Us Meaning, Empire of Illusion, and Death of the Liberal Class.
That's exactly the 3 that I've read.
Yeah.
I don't know why those are the 3. I don't know why we've read the same ones. I wonder if there was some kind of like marketing specific scheme that somehow landed those books like in our internet algorithms somehow.
Yeah, right.
I read Wars of Force That Gives Us Meaning when I lived in Saskatchewan for grad school. But I was going back through some of Chris's old podcasts today, and Chris Hedges appears on Escape Velocity Radio in 2013 in episode 15, and it is still available as like a podcast in podcatchers everywhere. So he says, I like how Hedges tells it like it is. So Chris Hedges, the author. And so Chris Hedges actually appeared on Chris Hanna and Derek Hoag's podcast, Escape Velocity Radio. So that is still available. Highly recommended. I listened to portions of it today.
I do have America, the farewell tour. I just got from the library since they finally started doing pickups, but I haven't started it yet.
Sweet. Are you a speculative fiction genre novel fan?
Not enough to where I could really talk with familiarity or with suggestions of like the best reads.
Yeah, gotcha. I'm still sort of an a beginner as well in exploring that genre of fiction. I tend to read a little more widely across many genres, but I also have the other podcast, Classical Ideas, where I have to read a lot of academic work. So my
Yeah.
time for novel consumption is greatly diminished. But in my rewrite of the lyrics, I said that Oryx and Crake by Margaret Atwood is my book that I threw into my things I like. So if anybody hasn't heard or hasn't read that book and then its accompanying trilogy, you should. But Chris loves speculative fiction. He talks about it all the time. He talked about a ton of his favorite speculative fiction novels in Escape Velocity Radio, also in his Catastrophic Break with Consensus Reality podcast. But an interesting connection to this song is that he was talking a lot about some of his favorite novels in episode 1 of Escape Velocity Radio with Wab Canoe. And Wab Canoe appears in this song, Things I Like. So that was pretty cool. But before we get to
Nice.
Wab, I'm curious about some of like your favorite lines from this song.
Yeah, I think the line, I like unbroken snow and lodgepole pine boughs, the rusty pump of a jay's forest communique. It's just so descriptive and visual that it's also very different coming from the Midwest where I live. This is like a description of a setting and environment that is so far removed from the flat corn and soybean fields of Indiana. And like what you just said at the very end, I like speculative fiction, dark narratives of the future that looms of our impending doom. I really like that last line, which kind of brings the song to a halt, and kind of makes you think a little bit more.
I like I had a few favorite lines. The emergence of competing histories is an important one because right now in the US we're having this debate about removing Confederate monuments that
Mhm.
were put up in this country decades after the Confederacy lost the Civil War. And so I think about this line, competing histories, because people are saying we can't take them down, we can't erase our history. But revising history was the exact reason why those things got put up in the first place,
Sure.
because they were put up decades later. So I'm watching this debate unfold about if we should or should not tear down monuments venerating the lives of people who were literal traitors
Mm.
and whose very agenda was to treat human beings as if they were like a lawnmower piece of property or like, something like that. So I'm thinking about that a lot right now, which is why I really liked the emergence of competing histories line. I also like the line, I like the Maple Leafs. They remind me of me,
Yeah.
inconsistent, fragile, internationally reviled. And I don't know what Chris's reputation is around the world, but that is actually really hilarious. But it's so perfectly Chris in the self-deprecation. He takes himself to task so often, like in his own podcast, where he's like, he like talks about himself like he's not like anything special. He's extremely humble. And to me, his self-deprecation and his awareness of his own fragility is a sign of a person who always wants to be better. So I think when he wrote this album, he was probably like, over 40, probably like 41 or something like that. And he still is saying, I'm inconsistent. My views can become more consistent. I am fragile. I'm only here for a little bit of time.
Mhm.
So to me, he's exemplifying a person who still wants to grow in his remaining years instead of becoming stagnant in his same old way of thinking. And, I was thinking about this comedically as well because I live in Buffalo, which is just down the road from Toronto. So the Maple Leafs certainly could be a very much better hockey team. And Maple Leafs fans believe that they also can be a better hockey team. Because every time the Maple Leafs are in Buffalo, there are far more Ontario license plates on the road than there are New York license plates. So That really cracked me up. So I don't know. That's what I thought about some of my favorite lines.
Nice.
Yeah.
What
So-
about the obviously like in this song what stands out is the interlude. What did you find out, or what can you tell us about the interlude in the middle of the song?
So I found out some stuff about this. I was looking into it today. So there is a First Nations language spoken word interlude, and I'm not even sure if interlude is the correct word. It
Sure.
might be like intermission, interlude. I don't really know what these terms mean. I still have more to learn. But the English translation of the interlude is this. Hello, my relatives. My name is Gray Cloud. Long, long ago, the old Aboriginal people were strong-hearted. They worked really hard. They were happy. They really looked the way they moved. Those old Aboriginals supported and helped the Europeans. Let us never forget. Go ahead and sing, you guys. Sing, you guys.
Ahawande we magani tok, wabana kwet indigo. Apache izan mewe jakete anishina beg, isongete wak. Kigachi anoki wak, gijikenda mok. Apache izan, gichikana gozi wak. Kete nishina bego giwi do kawa washaganashi wak. Kego win we county kesita. Zanigo nagamok, nagamok isna.
So this is spoken by a friend of Todd's named Wab Canoe. He's speaking an Ojibwe language called Anishinaabemowin, and he is the leader of he's in government now. He's the leader of the Manitoba New Democratic Party. He actually wound up running for the premiership of Manitoba in 2019. As far as I can tell, he did not win because another man is listed as the premier of Manitoba, but he's still the party leader. So you can find an interview with Chris, Derek, and Wab Canoe on Escape Velocity Radio episode 1 of their old podcast. And I know that Chris mentioned this interview recently on Catastrophic Break with Consensus Reality, so I checked it out today, and it's a ton of fun. It's really good. So it's a really beautiful moment in the song, and I didn't know what the translation was for the longest time, but I just found out today.
Yeah, I've always interpreted, like, without reading the translation, as this kind of like jarring stop in this list of personal things that, you know, the band values, as a reminder to say that this all came at a cost, at the displacement and the dehumanization of like the First Nations peoples who were removed from either Winnipeg or where I live in Northwest Indiana. So I kind of always saw it as a way to say I have all these things that I get to value, but those things came at the cost of the suffering of the people who were here before me.
Yeah, you know, I live here in Western New York, and there are First Nations reservations very close, just south of Buffalo. You just drive straight out of the city on I-90 going straight south, and you go through reservations within, 20 or 30 minutes. So I would like to take a moment to acknowledge that where I live in Western New York is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee. And I would like to also honor the sovereignty of the Six Nations, the Mohawk, Cayuga, Onondaga, Oneida, Seneca, and Tuscarora nations, which is where I live right now. And I also found something from Todd today, an interview that he did in 2012 about this song, where somebody was like, what's up with this interlude in the middle of this banger where you just stop and then you have this spoken word and then you go back into the so and Todd said that Wab is saying that all the people of North America should just remember and appreciate the Aboriginal people's contributions and history on the continent. But then at the end of the interlude, he says that we should all just rock out and have fun. So it's like it's a very unifying message in a lot of ways for the people that are here now. To recognize, to reconcile our difficult history on the continent, but that like if we're all at a punk rock show, we can all have our fists in the air next to each other as well.
Yeah, and I'm living on the traditional lands of the Kickapoo, Sioux, the Potawatomi, and the Miami, and I think that is something that is easy to overlook, especially with nativist language coming from, white nationalist movements that has been like mainstreamed into either Fox News or, politicians now. It's easy to see ourselves as being, the original people here.
Yeah.
But that unfortunately is illiterate in terms of history.
Yep. So the language of the United States is not English, ladies and gentlemen. The language of North America is not English. English is the language of England. I mean, So anyway, so Wab is also not only a politician, but he's a hip hop musician. So I'm still trying to track down some of his records. But if anybody out there listening has an Apple Music account in the U.S., you can find his song. It's called "Give It Up" on a compilation album called "Written in Blood," the Movement Native Music compilation. And you can also find him on another album called Res Poetry by a Winnipeg MC singer-songwriter named Leonard Sumner. So I would recommend going to check those out. Yeah. So Keith, what did you, what are some teachable moments or some takeaways you have about this song?
So as a history teacher, it's so easy to just focus on your curriculum and think I have to get from point A to point Z in such a limited time. Students like self-care and their well-being unfortunately gets pushed to the side. And in the last 2 years, I've tried to really take more steps in promoting mental health strategies and mindfulness practices in my classroom. And I really see this song as a way to focus on the things that make you feel like life is worth living and worth fighting for. The quote unquote small things, which in the end aren't always small things. I mean, they're things that make up our identity and our values, whether it's a book or a song. They make you feel less alone because maybe you read the words from someone that feels the same way you do. And it kind of maybe bridges a gap that someone in your neighborhood or in your classroom or in your workplace may not have those same ideas. So spend time doing what makes you feel good. Like what you like. It's a part of who you are. You don't have to like, the most sophisticated movies. Like if you love Captain Ron, just watch Captain Ron. Who cares?
Own it.
Yeah, oh, exactly.
So for a teachable moment, I don't really have one necessarily, but I do have one that I think that you should do. I think that during your after school heavy metal club, you should use this song as a lyric writing exercise. And I think that you should play it. And I think that you should show your students our versions that we wrote. And I think that you should have them make their own.
That's a great idea. Yeah. Done.
I think that would be so freaking sweet. Did you find anything on YouTube about this song? Any comments that ring your bell?
Not a whole lot. I think the only one that really came up was kind of meta in that it just said, this album is a thing I like.
Nice. Cool. Well, why don't we go ahead and close out this episode? Go ahead and tell me about your ranking.
I'm going to say a 2, and I really went back and forth between a 2 and a 3 because a 2 sounds like I don't like it, and that's not the case. It's probably my least favorite track on Failed States. It doesn't mean I don't like it. It's just I really I need to like reserve my 3s a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a song that I sing along to and I tap along to, but I never really put on right away. Probably more of the ideas of it and the strategies of it, like I said, and reflecting on what you find to be important, I like more than the song itself.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
I'm also going to give it a 2. It's got cool guitars, got cool hammer-ons, and I like the Ojibwe intermission from Wab Kinew. I think it's very poetic, and I think that his voice is tremendous. I think it's so soothing. The recording of that Ojibwe intermission, I absolutely love it, or interlude, whatever it is. I don't know. And I think it's a nice break from the darkness of the record, but I like this record because of the darkness. So I'm also with you, and this is probably my least favorite track on the record, but it's bouncy. It's got some fun stuff. It's got some dark stuff. It's got some doom and gloom and some jokes. And it's got a really cool spoken word interlude that I think is a neat addition to the Propagandhi catalog. Because I like hearing other languages spoken. I value that as a person who likes to listen to things, and as a person who values language, I value hearing other languages spoken passionately. And this was a really cool way to present that as well. So I'm going to give it a 2, but I also like it. But I think that was a good time we had today.
Yeah, it was fun to talk about things that we like.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for listening to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about Propagandhi. I am Greg.
I am Keith.
And thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Unscripted Moments, a podcast about Propagandhi, is created, hosted, and produced by Keith Goff and Greg Soden. Musical clips on this show are composed and performed by Propagandhi. Artwork on the show is by Justin Santora, who can be reached at justinsantora.com. You can find us on Twitter at PropagandhiPod and on Instagram at PropagandhiPod. If you like the show, please drop a rating on your podcast app of choice and subscribe to receive future episodes. Tell your friends. Thank you so much for listening.